Great. Sounds great. Well, hi, everyone. Wanted to welcome everyone to the Tuesday, February 28th, 2023 meeting of the Ann Arbor Parks Advisory Commission. This meeting will be broadcast live on CTN Cable Channel 19 and online at a2gov.org/watchctn. In order to speak at public comment, please call 1-877-853-5247 and enter meeting ID 949-7173-0458. And with that, I think we can go ahead and call the roll.
That's good. Commissioner Borgsdorf.
Here in Ann Arbor.
Commissioner Kraut.
Present in Ann Arbor.
Commissioner London.
I'm present in Ypsilanti today.
Commissioner Marson.
I'm here in Ann Arbor.
Commissioner Montague. Commissioner O'Connell.
Here in Ann Arbor.
Commissioner Ramaswamy. Commissioner Skiles.
Here in Ann Arbor.
Councilmember Radina.
Here in Ann Arbor.
Councilmember Watson is absent. We have a quorum.
All right, thank you very much. With that, we'll move on to the approval of our agenda today. Do we have any additions or corrections to the agenda? Okay. Hearing none, we will go ahead and move on to our first public commentary. We'll have 3 minutes per speaker. Is there anyone on the line to speak at public comment?
It looks like we do have a few callers. I will admit the first caller with a phone number ending in 544.
All right, thank you.
Caller ending in 544, you are now able to speak in the meeting, and your 3 minutes starts now.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Thanks for joining.
Okay. Committee members, my name is Larry Mendoza. I live at 3134 Asher Road here in Ann Arbor, and I'm here to talk to you regarding some changes that have been made for season pass rates at Leslie Park Golf Course. This year, the director of golf has added restrictions to the 7-day adult pass and for play on the weekends, and has eliminated play on the weekends entirely for the 5-day adult pass. In researching season pass rates approval by council, the last time these rates were approved was in 2009, and it set the rates for a full day at $9.95 without any restrictions. In addition to that, there was a senior rate that was a monthly pass that was $75 a month. That has been eliminated altogether. And what I'm here to ask from you is perhaps to advise the Parks Department that council has set those rates by adopting them legally, and that the staff does not have the authority to go in and circumvent what the council has acted on. In looking back at the changes that have been made over the years, I estimated it has cost me up to almost $900 in additional fees that I shouldn't have had to pay if I'd have known that these rates, as they were adopted, were in place. So I'm asking that they go back and look at those rates and go back to what council legally adopted, as opposed to unilaterally allowing one individual to make these changes. In addition, a second issue that I have is that the director of golf has decided that he has the authority to grant discounts to season pass rates to select individuals. By doing this, he is basically establishing a discriminatory and favoritism process whereby he determines who gets discounts. These discounts are unadvertised and are given to select individuals. Some individuals have gotten as much as $700 discounts. Others have gotten $100. I'm a taxpayer here, and I didn't know these discounts were out there till I heard it on the golf course. Per an open records request that I submitted, and I think you have a copy of, I've highlighted all the different individuals that got discounts off season pass rates. And to me, these are gifting of public funds, which is illegal. The director of golf does not have the authority to circumvent what council has acted on by setting those rates and deciding who he's going to give discounts to. I mean, that's not fair, and that's not equitable to us paid players. I mean, he could be giving discounts to non-residents for all I know. I mean, he doesn't know who he's giving discounts to. I mean, he does, but he doesn't know whether they're residents or non-residents. I don't know if they're his friends or not his friends. All I know is that I don't get the discount, and I didn't even know they were there, as do many of my fellow golfers. And all I'm asking is for somebody to look at the legality of this and for this to stop. It is not fair. It is not equitable. The golf department has been running $200,000 deficits for the last 5 years. That deficit is subsidized by taxpayer funds. Is giving discounts is giving away taxpayer funds, which is not legal in my opinion. And I would like for somebody to look at it and for the action to be stopped. I thank you for all the work that you do and for taking the time to hear me out. And that's all I've got to say.
Thank you for joining us.
Mhm.
Are there other callers on the phone for public comment?
I do believe we have a second caller with a phone number ending in 741. Caller with phone number ending 741, you are now admitted to speak in the meeting, and your 3-minute timer starts now.
Caller, can you hear us? You appear to be on mute still. Caller, you appear to still be on mute. Can you hear us, or perhaps unmute your phone if possible?
Okay, hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you
This
now.
is
Thanks for joining.
This is Larry Deck. I just tried to sign in. I was supposed to give a presentation, and I don't see myself on the screen. Is that all right?
Hi, Larry.
Yes. Larry, we'll be promoting you in just a second. So you will be promoted in just as we go through the next item.
Okay, so I'll just hang loose then.
Yep, sounds good.
Thanks.
Okay,
We'll
thank you.
talk to you shortly. Are there other callers for public comment?
I see one other potential caller with a name of A. If you'd like to raise your hand, if you are a public caller, we can admit you. It does not appear we have any more public callers.
Okay, thank you very much. We'll have another public commentary section at the end of the meeting today. We'll move on now to approval of our minutes from the last meeting. Those are the January 17th, 2023 minutes. They are attached in your packet. Is there a motion to approve or any additions or changes?
I move their approval, Lauren.
All right, motion by Steve. There's second. Second by
Second.
Ann. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor of approval?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say no. All right, motion carries. The minutes are approved. Thank you very much. And having done that, we are now ready to have our presentation from Larry Deck, who has appeared on our screen. Hi, Larry.
Hold on, Lauren.
Oh, sure.
I am very sorry because I realized we just approved those. And I'm not 100% positive about this, but 5B, corrected spelling of caller's name from Linda, Brower. I think is it Brauer or is it BAR?
Oh, boy.
Since it's a corrected spelling, I hope we can just ask
The corrected spelling, please.
ask somebody to verify that and then correct it to whatever the correction is.
That's an excellent point. Thanks, Ruth.
Which I'm not positive because I'm not positive I know the person. So,
I think it's Berauer.
oh
And
my
I think
God.
it might be in the
indeed.
minutes as BA.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
but
All right.
it should be findable, outable because Miss Brower was on PAC prior to us. So
And I
we'll
do
get
know,
it. We'll
I
get
do
it
know that we
corrected.
corrected it to match the previous, because she had spoken the previous meeting as well. So I think we had matched it. So I don't know if we need to go back and correct that as well, but
That might be true.
Great.
we matched it to the previous spelling that we had.
It could have been a two wrongs don't make a right situation.
think
So we
so.
should double check that one.
Okay.
Yeah.
So hopefully it's just a friendly amendment to fix whatever it should be.
Thank you.
Agreed.
I hope Linda's getting a kick out of this. Her continued appearance in the PAC activities.
We don't need to reapprove those minutes, correct? Just as amended. Can we retroactively have approved them as amended?
Yes.
All
Yes.
right.
Sounds good.
Perfect. Thanks again for that, Ruth. I appreciate the catch. Larry, so Walk, Bike, Washtenaw, you've put together a very comprehensive presentation for us, which we really appreciate. We've got a hugely packed meeting today, so we're going to try to clip along through this. We've allotted about 15 minutes for the presentation, and then with apologies in advance, I'm going to sort of curtail things so that we can get to the discussion and questions. But please be assured that we all will have the full presentation that you're going to be talking from. So we can sort of have a continued robust discussion around this. But apologies in advance and thanks for joining.
Yep, thank you for having me, and I'll try to go through things quickly. Can I share my screen here?
Yeah, I think you should be able to.
Okay. You see something?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. I want to talk about gaps in Ann Arbor's planned trail system and what to do about it, representing Walk, Bike, Washtenaw. I'll talk a little bit about the organization, about the gaps in Ann Arbor, about the plan links to the border trail, just touch on carbon neutrality plans and the campus bikeway proposal and some collaboration examples, and mainly focus on resolutions that might help move this process forward. Walk Bike Washtenaw, the mission is to make Washtenaw County a national leader in bicycling and walking by improving facilities, policies, and community support. We've been at this for over 20 years and we've been effective on many projects. We do events, participate in public committees, and cooperate with others. We've worked on connected non-motorized systems, the crosswalk ordinance, complete streets, Vision Zero, speed limits, and many other things. And on our website, we have an interactive map of priority projects countywide that you can zoom in on. Here's an example in some of the parks along the river area here of our priority projects. And as you know, Border Trail is a statewide and regional priority. It can connect together with some other trails that are in the works, can connect to Lake Erie and up to the Lakelands Trail. And there's some things that have been added since this map was done. It's a major facility. The gaps in Ann Arbor, as you're probably aware, between Vanderman Park and Barton Park, that progress on that is underway, as you know, and we're grateful for that. The other two gaps here near the Fuller Maiden Lane intersection and Fuller Bridge over the river, want to talk about a little bit more. These were addressed in the 2006 non-motorized plan with how to get through there, and also in over both the intersection and at the river. And in the 2016 Parks Plan, unfortunately, both these plans and their new iterations don't have these maps carried forward, but we think they're important. They have important information. As you know, the trails are heavily used. This count was done in 2006. In 12 hours, there were over 4,000 pedestrians and over 700 bicyclists near that intersection there every day, heavily used area. This shows how to close the B2B gaps in the central part of Ann Arbor here. And these things have long been planned. Instead of the temporary route, if you can see my cursor there shown in red, the plan has been to go under this bridge and build a new bridge. And this bridge and the other bridges around here were all built with concrete pads underneath to allow trails to go underneath. And then likewise at this bridge here, instead of this temporary route across a busy street here, you can go under without crossing the street. And this close-up of the filler at the Huron River here just shows that in more detail. Border Trail, would come down here and go under, and the campus bikeway proposed would go this way and go on out to North Campus, so it would serve two purposes. And this was from a city council resolution passed in 2015, reaffirming the plans that have long been had to improve this intersection. All three of these bridges here, plus the one over at Fuller and the river, were built with concrete pads underneath. This was the planned trail system. And this area, had previously been city parkland and still is parkland mostly, but the roads have been widened on it and parking lots have been built, so it's lost a lot of its park character. I was involved in sitting in some of these meetings back in the 1980s about what was going to be done, and at least there were going to be some trail improvements made to offset the loss of effective parkland. And unfortunately, nothing's been done on these trails in the last 40 years, but they've been long planned. The Parks Plan and Transportation Plan also showed connections between Broadway and the B2B Trail. They're with a short link here over the short waterway. This was where the power plant water used to come out of the generating facility. And then I've lost my curve. There it is. Or else going this way here over the trail. This might be more difficult because it's closer to this private entity here, but this would help for people going over the bridge here. How do you get to the trail? Well, you either have to go across a busy street here or else go down Wall Street. And this would let you get straight to the trail and get to the Cascades and wherever you want to go. And back to this map here, there's other things that were shown on this in addition to B2B and connections. Things, for example, in the university area, connection between the Gallup Park and the Arbor, which would would actually connect to the B2B trail and some other things. And a future iteration of this map could show these things, but the items in here that are on private land would have to be treated differently. The city and county and University of Michigan all have carbon neutrality plans calling for aggressive action on biking and walking. In Ann Arbor, hope is to have vehicle miles down by 50% by 2030 and 25% of in-city trips by biking and walking. The Vision Zero plan for safety, the Washington County plan, and U of M has their carbon neutrality plan calls for a campus-to-campus bike route and connection with other cycling pathways. And just aside here, there's no good way to bike now between North and Central Campus, but we have a detailed proposal which we could go into in the future about how this could work. This would connect with the B2B facilities and use part of them. You're well aware of collaborative projects. The Vandenberg to Barton connection, as you know, and you're taking a lead in that, has multiple participants. These other trails are just some examples of the many things around the county. The trail from the B2B up to the Botanical Gardens, multiple partners. The Dexter here on Hudson Mills Park, multiple partners in that. So it takes a partnership to make these things happen. So what's the problem in holding up these things? Been planned for 40 years, but yet nothing's been done. The plans were long-standing. There's public support. It's a state and county-wide priority, compatible with climate and safety policies. It's heavy use. A lot of activity on trails all around, not so much in Ann Arbor, and there's funding available. What seems that part of the reason may be the lack of a department that's owning these projects and concern about who's responsible for construction and maintenance, and the gap between transportation and recreation and how to deal with projects to deal with both. So we're suggesting city council be involved to try to clear this bottleneck. So we're suggesting a resolution. And these are some of the things that could touch on. I'd be happy to help draft this, or you could draft it and I'd be happy to interact on that. This actually draws on a resolution that Park Commission passed back in 2011, and City Council passed back in 2015, that these things have been planned for decades, part of B2B and Iron Bell, busy intersection, heavy use, 820, Vision Zero, all ages and abilities network, safety, the 4 underpasses and the loop trail and the connections, the bridge over the river, and B2B construction elsewhere in the county. And then resolved, what are we going to do? We don't want to interfere with what's going on with the Vandenberg Barton connection, because that's very important. But we think we need to think a little bit ahead, a couple of years. When that's done, maybe in 2024, 2025, if we can meet the anticipated schedule, where do we go next? And these are things that could be done at some suggested times here. City Council could reaffirm its intent about the B2B connections, could do that this year. And then maybe next year, establish an interdepartmental team to deal with these issues, allocate funding in partnership with others on the design, and indicate a willingness to participate in construction when that comes time. And the city council could direct staff maybe in 2025 to do the designs, determine the responsibilities, prepare the construction budgets and the phasing, and establish a funding plan, apply for funding, and then build it either before or concurrently with road work. And then this should be a joint resolution with Transportation Commission, we think, because it deals with both. Transportation Commission could likewise pass a resolution now, and these could go to City Council. Planning Commission, it was pointed out to me by staff that this might not reflect exactly how Planning Commission works, but I know that in the capital improvements plan, they do assign priorities to projects which percolate up from the staff level. So perhaps Planning Commission could be asked to look at the priority for some of these projects. And then the pros plan ultimately ought to be changed, we feel. Amendments may be difficult now based on input from your staff, but perhaps when the next plan comes around in a few years, things can be done to identify the B2B projects and connections. Other planned projects on public lands could be shown a little bit differently, and conceptual things on non-public lands could be shown perhaps in a different way. So we'd like to work with you to pass a joint resolution with Transportation Commission. We'd be happy to tour these sites. If you haven't seen them, it's eye-opening to see these things. And we can strategize and for sure check out our website about some of the things we've been doing. We're volunteers, but we do what we can to get things done and to maintain a website. So I look forward to questions and discussion here.
Larry, you got through that in record time. That's amazing.
Try to hurry.
So I appreciate it. And certainly you've drawn our attention to a lot of different things. One question I had was that you mentioned the university's involvement as well. To what extent are they discussing things with Walk Bike Washtenaw now in terms of what their preferred ideas are?
Well, that's a very interesting question. This actually finishing B2B here would use parkland rather than university land. I would hope that they'd be supportive of getting this done and perhaps put some funding into it, because it would serve a lot of their employees and staff that you go to the hospital and elsewhere and between the campuses. We've had interesting interaction with them lately on the East Medical Center Drive Bridge, as you may be aware, where initially they wanted to actually make that worse for biking and walking. Now the city and university have worked out an arrangement where at least it'll be no worse. We'd like to see it made better, and we've tried to make it better by widening the sidewalks on there to make increased room for bikers and walkers. We hope that we can still make some progress on that, but at least we're trying to keep it from getting worse. I don't understand some of the university's pushback on East Medical, but on these other things, I think they'd be fully in line. But it's a good question.
So I see Anne has a question. Go ahead.
Hi, Larry. Thanks for this presentation. It sounds like, I had a kind of a similar question as Lauren, but it sounds like, have you given a similar presentation to the university? Have you had recent contact with them to gauge their interest in a project like this, given that it does serve their needs as well?
No recent meetings. We've tried to interact with them over the years. It's been somewhat difficult. And during the COVID thing, it's been difficult, like on the East Medical project, to have person-to-person interaction. So our interaction was all by email or presentations at city council meetings, and it's very indirect. So I guess we do need to have more interaction. I think there may be city people or parks people who can help facilitate some of that.
Yeah, obviously, trying to guess at what their priorities are is not as ideal as actually, I think they'd be more willing to cooperate if this does align with their priorities, but it's hard to know what those are without talking to them. But and then a Walk Bike Washtenaw, so that implies that you're concerned with walking and biking in the county as a whole. Is that right?
That's right. Yeah. Initially, we recently changed our name from Washtenaw Bicycling and Walking Coalition, but that was such a big mouthful that we wanted to shorten it a little bit. So, we work on things countywide.
So how do these Ann Arbor-based priorities, where do they fit in with your countywide priorities?
Well, the county priority right now, as you know, is on getting the underpass under the railroad between Vandenberg and Barton Parks. Beyond that, both the county and the Huron Waterloo Pathways Initiative, which, has been working on that project, and I think providing about a third of the funding for that underpass. I think they would like to work with the city on these projects that I've been outlining here, but right now they don't know how to do that unless there's a city agency to cooperate with. So I think, we need to think ahead a couple of years here about what agency is going to take the lead on that, whether it's parks, transportation, or some interdepartmental thing who can take the lead and be a vehicle for the county to work with, and also for HWPI to work with. There may be private funding opportunities for these things as well if there's a local partner.
I will jump in about the county as well. We've had some recent conversations with the county regarding the priorities for the border to border. And while these inconveniences within the city of Ann Arbor, the crossings of roads at crosswalks and things are concerns long term, they're not the priorities, because the priority for the county is to complete the border to border. So areas where there are illegal crossings or there are not trails in general, such as from Barton to Dexter, is where their priorities lie first. Is their goal is to complete the border to border, as opposed to segments where there are these somewhat more inconveniences or not necessarily gaps, but areas of less preferred crossings.
Yeah, I guess it depends how you define gap. I mean, I tend to look at it one way, and it's a matter of definition, I guess. When I think of something that's been planned for a long time and it's been gotten around with what I look at as a temporary expedient of crossing these busy streets, I look at it as a gap, but I guess it's all how you look at it.
And semantics are there, but the goal to get it from one side of the county to the other is a completing of it, and there is a way to do that at East Medical, which is not ideal, but it is there. So.
Yeah, and I think we need to look at this in a countywide aspect as looking at the usage. You know, the usage of these things in Ann Arbor is heavy now and would be even heavier with improvements. And there's a lot of great things being done all around the county where the use would be much less. And so it's important to get some of these things done, both in Ann Arbor and Ypsilanti. There's some things have been done. There's some more opportunities that need to be taken care of in Ypsilanti. And I think people are amenable to dealing with the needs of the population centers as well as some of the great facilities that are done countywide.
Steve, question.
Yeah, maybe more of a comment. Thank you very much for coming and presenting all this. Fully support it. I think just to kind of emphasize a couple of points, I think PAC can be important in showing support and, where possible, enthusiastic support for the things that involve are kind of within our purview, within the parks department or involving park land and so forth, and can help the city council articulate the priorities. I think generalized statements in favor of things are maybe less important now than really completing some of the missing links in the system. And as you pointed out, it's the Iron Bell Trail. It's not just a citywide or a countywide thing. I mean, this is statewide and potentially beyond. So the other thing I wanted to underscore is that there's a chance or conversely a missed chance if there's construction going on around the roadway and the bridges that doesn't think about these kind of trail connectors, because when the Bandamer rail underpass kind of thing is taken care of, this maiden lane, or not win, but like there's some kind of like a sequence, but one of the other big gaps is that maiden lane intersection. So that's important to keep in mind and not miss a chance if there's construction going on or planned, to make sure that discussions are happening with all the right people. So fully in favor of PAC doing whatever we can do to kind of move those conversations forward. I think this is part of the right place, part of the right venue to do that, but certainly not the only one. I mean, there's a lot of other stakeholders in these kind of discussions. But
I agree.
Yeah.
So go ahead.
No, I was just going to end with a thank you. Yeah, again, for coming and presenting it all in such a clear way.
I agree with the other stakeholders, and I think the transportation department, engineering, however you want to describe it, is very important. It should be involved here. In the earlier transportation plans, this was in there, as I mentioned, and the most recent plan barely even mentioned the border trail. Like, they're focusing on street things, which is important. The on-street network is an important part of the network, but the off-street things are very important too. And it seems like they've shirked some of their responsibility on the new transportation plan to look at an integrated network. So I think there's a heavy transportation responsibility to help make this work. So both in terms of funding, I mean, we need to look at how the construction and maintenance are going to be done, but I don't see this as a parks only thing, but I think the parks participation is critical.
Yeah. And I will echo to some extent what Stephen said in regards to parks is very supportive. I mean, the border to border is a primary function of the parks. It is one of our main features of it. And as we have in the pros plan, we have a number of priorities put into the pros plan of projects that in the future will come about as our top priorities, along with the maintenance of it. The reality is we have a number of pieces of the border to border that need to be widened and upgraded. So it has park support with this. It is also the understanding of financial resources, time, staff resources of how we put these things into play. So I'm sure Hillary could speak longly about how long the Barton to Bandamere tunnel takes and where we're at compared to the start of it. So it's not that we can't do this stuff. It just takes a while, especially when there's multiple parties involved. So we appreciate it. We definitely look at this as an opportunity to start and continue a conversation with Bike Washtenaw, as opposed to this is the final statement of it. But it is our goal to move forward and continue to have further conversations with you, Larry.
Certainly appreciate that and look forward to continuing this conversation and helping move things forward. The parks, parks are the jewel of Ann Arbor, really, all the parks, and certainly appreciate what the department and the park commission do to help make that. I think that's a big part of the quality of life here. So it's certainly appreciate it.
Thanks so much. Other comments from PAC or staff? All right. There, Hillary, we can't hear you for some. Oh, there you are.
Yeah. Also, on what Josh was saying, just for to kind of put these big infrastructure projects in context. So in the Barton Bandamere Tunnel project, I've been working on that since 2019. Was kind of when we started the feasibility study, and then now we're in design engineering. Hoping for construction in 2024, but it just kind of speaks to the time frame that some of these big things, especially when you're working with other jurisdictions, not just parkland. Our funding partners and railroads, and this is a complex, infrastructure piece as well with engineering and that and others.
Things do take time. In fact, as you probably know, the park department started looking this back, I think, in 2006. There was some preliminary design work done, and it's been a while. So it's good to see that moving.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Larry. Other comments before we move on? Larry, we really appreciate you coming and taking us through this today. There's certainly a lot to digest and think about.
And if people want to tour out here, let me know. It's if you haven't walked around this area, it's great to see it.
Absolutely. All right. Well, thank you. I think with that, we will turn to our next presentation. We have Jessica Black here to talk about parks rentals. Jessica, hello.
Hi there. All right, so I'm going to share my screen so we can get this. All right. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Jessica Black. I'm a supervisor with Parks. I've been with this city, it'll be 21 years this July. I started here at Cobblestone. I was here for a couple of years, went to as a seasonal, and then went to the farmers market, managed the farmers market for 3 seasons, and then came back to Cobblestone, and in this capacity in October of 2007. So that's a little bit about me. Does the screen look correct to you guys? Yeah, okay.
Yes.
Okay. So I am going to talk about today the various things that I'm responsible for. And the number one thing I do is the supervise the Parks Customer Service Office. We are located here at Cobblestone. And we moved here in April of 2008 from previously being at the Northside Community Center. It was a whole restructuring of how we were doing providing customer service for the parks unit as a whole. We didn't have really a good grasp on what was going on with our rentals in the parks, where to send folks with questions, all the different things that might have been coming up. So as a part of the creation of this job I'm in, they said, we're going to move the office to Cobblestone. So we did that, and as you see, it's myself as a full-time staff. Over the years, I've gained one part-time permanent position, and then I am supported by seasonal staff. So anywhere from 3 to about 10 or 12 at the very most, depending on the year. I like to think back, 2 years, but 2 years was still COVID. And so it's really, 2019 when I was thinking about what we were doing prior, how we were operating, when I was reflecting on creating this presentation for you, because 2020, 2021, and frankly, 2022 were just a little kind of all over the place. Every day is different here for us in Cobblestone, or at the customer service office. We do kind of anything. We're a catch-all, like I mentioned. So, you want your grass mowed, you don't want the grass mowed. The limbs are down from the storm, the limbs are not down from the storm. Any kind of thing that someone wants to call about, they call our office. We also have a couple of email accounts we manage. We support the other facilities with their registrations. So that's a big part of what we do, is helping the customer get the right, session registered for, or getting them to the right person if they have a question about, can my kid do the swim lesson or not? We are a Monday through Friday operation, 9 to 4, which seems to work pretty well for us and the public. And then we also are here at Cobblestone whenever there's a rental going on. So there is kind of some extended hours if needed. So I'll jump into park rentals. The numbers kind of speak for themselves. You can see in 2020 and 2021, there wasn't very much going on, but last year we really kicked it up, and we had a lot more use than we had prior to the pandemic. Basically, we look at anywhere from 50 to 60 people per use. What we do is I rent, we think about a use as the one time you're at a facility. For instance, Penny Seats, Lauren, you guys would have one permit, but have potentially like with your permit. So I like to think of it as uses as opposed to permits, because permits don't always correctly reflect what we're doing. So park rentals are a little bit more simplistic in their nature, right? So there's not an impact to the general public. It's, me and my friends, or me and my coworkers, or the birthday party that we need to have, whatever it may be. So it's kind of a very simple event in a park using a shelter or potentially some park space to put a tent up, or my neighborhood park, they have a great playground. We want to rent it and guarantee we can have, our food and beverage, and that the grass would be mowed. So that's another thing we do. We encourage people to rent parks so that they have guaranteed use of the space, and so that we can provide the correct amenities and additional services so their event is successful, right? So making sure the grass is mowed and trimmed, making sure the trash is picked up ahead of time, spaces are cleaned, electricity is working, whatever it may be. Some of our lesser known shelters that are rented include Vandermeer Park, so a very cute little small access to the river. Lots of small meetings are there, or we see people that will rent the shelter and the fire circle that's right nearby. Olson Park Shelter, so on the north side of town, great location, has electricity, plenty of parking, open field space. And then southeast area, another kind of gem that people forget about. Lots of people call it the Nike Court, but it's probably one of our most popular parks underneath Gallopin Island. The Burns Park Shelter is a small indoor building. You can sort of see it in the middle of the photo there. It's also called the Warming Hut. That location is actually rented quite frequently by university departments, right? So being sort of central and located nearby campus for walking. Lots of U of M groups use it. Most recently, Penny Seats and the Civic Band moved there when we had to close down the band shell at West Park, and have found that location that works very well for them. And then a great photo of Gallup, right? So everybody knows about Gallup. Everybody that calls here, we want to rent Gallup. What can we do at Gallup? It's because it's a beautiful park. The photo, these kind of drone images were from Scott Spooner. He took them with his drone, and I just love the way they look. Gallup's fantastic. The thing about Gallup that my office struggles with is that it doesn't, other than the river, it doesn't have very many amenities, right? So there's no electricity, there's no running water restrooms. The shelters are somewhat of a distance from the parking lot, and then parking is a big challenge. So here in my office, we like to do most of our operations and our rentals by phone, so that when somebody sends an email that says, I want to rent Gallup, we can call them and say, okay, well, that date's not available, but have you thought about this location? Or what are you trying to do in the park? Or what do you need? What are your must-haves for this event? And then we can find other locations for them, because as great as Gallup is, it's not always available and it's super busy on any given day. Special events. So special events are different from general park rentals in the sense that it's going to impact the regular users of the park. They can have some like nuances, right? Some different details that a regular just park rental might not have. They're often promoted to the public, and so there's kind of an open experience with those, whereas a department getting together and having a park rental, or me and my friends getting together, that's very different. Special events require a review by the various city departments, and we do a lot of them. We have a lot going on. As you see by the numbers, one of our longest standing rental special event groups that we've had is the Sunday Artisan Market. They're getting ready to celebrate their 32nd year at the farmers market every Sunday, April through December. A really great location for them, a hidden gem, frankly, for the city that we take for granted, I almost think, but they work really hard to get that market going. They opened during COVID, which was exciting for them because they kind of had no opportunity for artists to kind of get out and sell to the public. So super excited about special events. They can be a labor of love, but after a couple of years, the application and review and planning can happen pretty seamlessly. This is a photo of Fuller, Field 3, and this was a special event I worked with for the Summer Festival. So the Ann Arbor Summer Festival in 2021 wasn't having Top of the Park as it's known. They weren't really doing much, and they came to me and said, you know, we need an area that we can have defined for social distancing. We can lay out the map to make sure we keep that number at 100 or less. We want to have a stage, and we want to show movies because we really just want to do something for our community. And so after a bunch of brainstorming, we decided on our field because we weren't having games then. We weren't renting the fields at that point. So this is sort of an aerial photo of what they did. They brought in everything. We, permitted, make sure they didn't pop the irrigation lines, et cetera, and had some really great successes down there. And then this year, my favorite event personally that I worked on was the Grillin' with Gretchen at Wheeler Park. So looking at Wheeler Park as a, frankly, I kind of shied them away from this location. There's no parking. What are you thinking? There's no contained space. But with the help of park operations and park maintenance, we were able to install a fence on the far east side of Wheeler Park, which was one of the requirements for from the MSP and the Secret Service that Governor Whitmer has with her. And she came, she talked, we had food, there were tents. It was really fantastic. The weather held off, even though it was wanting to kind of thunderstorm on us. It probably irritated or frustrated a number of city administrators with this event because given the nature of it, I couldn't really share much information other than with my direct managers. That was part of the planning process that her team had us go through. So it was sort of at the last minute. It came out that we were doing this event and everyone was, what are you doing? How, you got to move it. It can't be there. That's a bad location. But when I saw the mayor at the event that night, I said, I'm really sorry. Like, I didn't mean to upset everyone, but welcome to this wonderful event. And, it really was. It was a great night and pretty exciting for everyone and a new use of Wheeler Park, right? So kind of looking at what else can we do in that location to activate, as one might say, the space. Sports fields. So Fuller and Olson have what we consider premium athletic fields. So those are rented on a regular basis, essentially from mid-April through kind of the end of October. There's approximately anywhere from like 6 to 10 teams that are renting these locations on a regular basis. We're actively looking for groups to rent them more frequently, not just on Monday through Thursday evenings, or we really don't have many groups on Friday nights. It'd be nice to have a group in there. there are what we call 7 unique parks and then 24 locations that are frequently rented, right? So Fuller could be one park, but it has 6 fields available. So those are the 6 unique locations within there. Other parks that are rented include Almendinger, Riverside, and Southeast area. And those are generally for youth flag football or ultimate frisbee, kind of one-off games that sports that are looking for just open space that has some kind of maintenance associated with it, but not at the premium level that Olson and Fuller might have. And then there's Liberty Plaza. So last year, right around now, as a matter of fact, Josh and I were kind of kicking around this idea that there was going to be some money for Liberty Plaza. What could we do? How would I use it? What might I do? As he's heard me say many a time, I wanted nothing to do with it, yet here I am, and I love it. I'm really proud of the work that the community and my office and then park operations that we've really done at that location. We've had some really fantastic events there. Lots of folks are coming, now they're starting to inquire about doing events again. We have some plans for some landscaping and some additional lighting. What you see in that image was kind of stuff that we had stored that we thought, well, we'll just kind of throw it up there for right now and see how it goes. So we'll be putting in some more permanent stuff in this year, and then also looking at how can we brighten the space? How can we enliven the space through some type of murals? As you see in the photo, it's kind of just a dark cement park. And if there's a way to bring some kind of color and excitement and joy into it, then we really should be focusing on that. Here's my holiday market that I had at Liberty Plaza. So I was just meeting with the CARICOM District Association today to talk about Kindle Fest for this year and what they were kind of thinking of doing, which was great because our market came out of realizing that there wasn't going to be a Kindle Fest in 2022 and we needed to activate the space. And so I worked with my staff and we kind of threw together this wonderful art market, gift market on the Friday of Midnight Madness. I had a small freak out about 2:00 in the afternoon when the wind was blowing and the tents were rattling. And all I thought was, what have I done? I've just created a disaster. But then the wind died down and we had this really great market. I'm really proud of it. It was a lot of work, but it was so fun to do and to have and to kind of see that space used yet again in a different way. And here we are at Cobblestone. So rentals of Cobblestone, the barn is rented prior to COVID all the time, frankly. Weddings on a Monday, weddings on a Thursday, and then Friday, Saturday, Sunday weddings. Really busy leading into COVID. And then we kind of came to a screeching halt during COVID and continuing through, frankly, 2022. There were size limitations, right, on gatherings, as well as some changes that we had to make to our contracts so that we were prepared for kind of what a pandemic might bring and how do you host a reception, large gathering venue during a pandemic. Our paperwork, our contracts didn't address any of that, right? So we needed to take a pause and really work through that documentation in 2021. So last year, we were able to host a lot of the events that didn't get to take place in 2020. So people that had booked with us, because we were booking 18 months out. So you booked your date in 2019 for 2020. Now we aren't doing events. So you bump it to 2021. Well, still not doing events. So we bumped you to 2022. We also, at the same time, changed the structure of rentals at Cobblestone. So last year, we went through a redesign of how we rent the space. As opposed to being single events every single day, we now, May through October, are one event Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So one person has the space, one event has the space on a Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, May through October. And then in November through April, we're single day events. And looking into 2023, right? So people that are having events this year and then even into next year, that hasn't been a concern. The fees that we came up with the increase is actually quite small when you looked at adding all 3 days together. So while the price was higher, right? So if it was 2,000 before, now it's 4,000, it's still almost less than renting all 3 days. So I'm excited about that, having done this for so many years. Really lucky that we didn't have any catastrophe on any given Friday night or Saturday night and then had to have a wedding the next morning at 10 a.m. Right. So looking at how are we offering services, how are we preparing for the events to have a really great time, not stressing them out on one day, but allowing them that whole weekend to really be here and celebrate with friends and family that may be coming in. I'm proud of it. I think it's going to work really well for us. It is working really well for us right now. So we kind of kick off our season again in April. And so we'll sort of keep moving then. Last year we did, like you saw, we did have a couple of events last year. This picture is of a wedding that we hosted in June of 2022. Because of our COVID restrictions at that time, we were limited to 90 people indoors, and they had 180 people at their event. So on the property, we worked with them to put up the various size tents, tables and chairs. They had the whole weekend. And it was fabulous, right? The weather was gorgeous, everything looked great. All the inspections were done on time. The vendors worked together wonderfully. And, this group that had sort of been sticking with us through COVID now finally had this really wonderful event. Cobblestone is a really special spot for me, mostly because I started here, but also because I put a lot of energy and effort into this location, really thinking about what would I want it to look like if I was having my wedding here, if I was having a special event here. And I'm fortunate that other people kind of buy into my nonsense when I ask for it or I suggest it. The maintenance staff always sort of, okay, Jessica, we'll get it done for you, which I'm very lucky and fortunate to have. And then again, another drone image of Cobblestone. The leaves at that time were so beautiful, and the grass, frankly, it looked like confetti had been sort of sprinkled over the grass at Cobblestone. So fun pictures. And then just sort of the totals, right? So looking at on any given year, how many people are coming through our parks for an organized use of a space. So I look at the numbers such that every use has about, in 2020, every use has about 78 people. But Scott, when we were talking through this presentation, he was like, that means on every day there's 5 uses in a park. And I was like, yep, that's one way to look at the numbers as well, right? So lots of people in the parks. My office impacts lots of folks. We're really busy. We're making sure that if 16 locations are rented on Saturday, June 21st, that all of them are ready for folks, that everything's been clean, that the restrooms are clean, that the parking is figured out. We do our very best. We have very few complaints, very few, oh, you're right, we just really dropped the ball, here's your money back. Very rarely, less than, I would say, 5 times a year does that happen to us, or I just have to go, we really messed up. Which says a lot to the people that work with me in my office. I am one person working with all of the seasonal staff that kind of stay with me each year, come back after their breaks they take their employment break. And I wouldn't be able to do anything that I do without them, frankly. So I'm really proud of what we do. And that's sort of all I have. That's me, that's Parks.
Thank you so much, Jessica. Questions for Jessica? There are a ton of people that you guys impact every year. So I see Pravina first and then Anne.
Jessica and team, super kudos to all of you. That is a huge undertaking, and the fact that you're doing this, not just solo, but you're leading these efforts with a big team, and you've had very few issues, and you've thought about every potential scenario. I really thank you. That just makes our parks more successful and more welcoming to different groups of people. So thank you for doing that. I really was intrigued by the proposal idea for adding pizzazz and a mural to Liberty Plaza. I think that when you drive down that road, and if that was to happen, it would really bring color and light to that area. And for me, it feels like it's just around the corner to, the arts district for our area. It really speaks to, when we have some art fair or other festivals, it really seems like a nice piece to draw in a smile and some art and some color into our community. So I really hope that does come to fruition. And again, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Anne, go ahead.
Hi, Jessica. Thanks so much for that presentations. Amazing to see almost 150,000 people last year served by park rentals. You mentioned that Cobblestone is you book 18 months out. Is that still the case now that we're through the pandemic? And
Yes. Yeah.
okay. Yeah. And then
we are looking into 2024 right now.
Yeah. Okay. And then for other facilities, what's like a typical lead time? I mean, are other facilities generally speaking available when people want them, or do those also have, you're on a wait list for those?
Sure. Yeah. So we do. We open up the calendar for rentals at the beginning of January, right? So the first business day after January, we open up that year's worth of rentals. There's some people that call right away at 9 a.m. on that business day to get their annual event. Or we have folks that call, we try and get everything done no less than 7 days in advance of the rental date. We make some exceptions to that, but most folks are renting, I would say, like 2 to 3 months before. And then there's a lot of folks that are like, I can only do it on a Saturday. And then when they call 2 weeks before that Saturday, I suddenly can do it on a Thursday, right? So I've often wanted to change the way that we, thought about like, oh, it should be electronic. And we tried that in 2021 to do reservations that way. But so much because our community has so many parks and available opportunities for rental, we really need to take that time to have a conversation with somebody to say like, Island would be a great opportunity for you. Gallup's not available, or, this other park might be available. So, most folks are in that 2 to 3 month window, but, oftentimes it's, the month of the rental that they're trying to figure it out.
Yeah. Then my last question is just, is there anything that people ask for that we just don't have for them? Like we can't, they've got a request and we can't do it because it's not part of our system.
I would say, generally no, right? So we do offer enough at various locations that we can often find something, but would it be nice to have running water restrooms at Olson? 100%, right? Absolutely, that would be great. But we have pit toilet, so we do have restrooms available, and then it has electricity. So we try and like play the good with the bad, right? So, you don't have this, but you do have that. And then just another location. I mean, we're busy, right? So parks are rented all the time, as you saw. So if we had another place that had kind of parking available, restrooms, and a shelter, it would take off, and no matter, for sure. I'd like to see one, and Josh knows, at Vets Park. I mean, that location with the skate park, where that building was the same building when I was a kid riding up and down the hill on my bike. So, that we're not doing that anymore, but maybe we'll get one in the future here.
Rachel, go ahead.
That was a great presentation. It was really interesting and gave me a lot of helpful context. I especially like seeing the trends of where we were at pre-COVID and where we're at in this, whatever we want to call it, era. So that was great. I just wanted to ask whether or not you had any potential funding sources identified for that mural project.
Well, we do have this ARPA money. So we still have the federal money available that we can spend towards Liberty Plaza. So there's that as a possible resource. And then I'm sure Josh can speak to other opportunities that would be out there. My quick reaction would be my budget that I have for rentals and Cobblestone, as well as some type of millage money. But obviously Josh can speak to that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that we have actively gone out. I think that the first thing was looking at the idea, which is a wonderful idea, and that's what the ARPA funds have done, is allowed us to think differently about that space and what we can do. We will continue to evaluate it, and as we get a closer amount, we'll kind of see if there's community groups out there. At times, some of the mural groups actually want to they want their name on it. They want to be a part of it. So there's ways to do it as well. So as we get closer to what we're going to be doing with that, we will share it out and begin to reach out to see what options might be available.
Okay, and if it's Arbor, you'll keep an eye on the allocation deadline.
Yeah. Yes, we have regular meetings. We know when we have to spend it by. We know what we need to do. Like finances, the 100,000 compared to what Hillary deals with the 2.3 that she has for the bridge is a little bit easier for us to deal with. But so no, it has been great. But yes, well, if we can find ways to find other money, if there's community groups out there that want to support it, if there's foundations, if there's different things, we'll definitely take it. But if not, our number one goal is to get something there because it will make an impact to that space.
And I'm guessing because you're still exploring it that you don't have a budget idea yet for that project.
No, not yet.
No.
I don't.
Okay.
No.
Yeah.
No.
Okay.
We
Thank
do
you.
this. We do this occasionally with some other spaces. So it is going to be getting out there and getting some of the people that we've worked with in the past to see what kind of dollar amounts they would charge, and then we'll kind of go to it, work with the Public Art Commission. So a couple processes that we'll need to do with that still.
Okay, thank you. It was a wonderful presentation.
Thank you.
Other questions for Jessica?
I will jump in since someone's raised their hand. It is always my opportunity during these things to just thank the supervisor. I do remember the conversation that Jessica and I had last spring about Liberty Plaza. And when she looked at me like I was crazy and it was the worst idea ever. But Jessica, everything that she puts her mind to, she really comes through and does a great job with it. She has visions for her space, for the things that are done. And we're truly fortunate to have her in the role that we have her in because of the passion that she has for customer service and providing events that people want to talk about for months and years to come. So we're very fortunate there. And I am thoroughly grateful that she listened to me and understood that I had a really good plan for her to make this work. So.
And I just wanted to say one last thing. I know I've gone way past 15 minutes, but I forgot. I have a note, but I forgot. Everything I do, right? Everything my office comes up with, all the ideas, the public, their requests, all of that. When it comes time for that event to take place, I always say, like, I can only point my fingers so far. Like, I need all of the maintenance folks, all that buy-in, right? All of the crews, cut that limb, don't cut that limb, trim this, power wash that. And frankly, I would be at a loss if I didn't have Jason Nealis and Kevin Ernst kind of working so closely with me, supporting my crazy ideas and events. And, you probably all know Kevin's getting ready to retire. And that to me is, a huge excitement thing for him, but also a big loss. And Kevin has always dealt with me and managed my craziness and dealt with my kind of, no, it needs to be perfect because these people are paying and all these people are going to be impacted by it. And wouldn't it be great if they were happy? And he buys right in. So, kudos to the park maintenance team by all means, because I wouldn't have any of this without them.
Hear, hear.
Wow, thank you.
Thank you so much, Jessica. That was a fabulous presentation. It's great to see you.
Yeah, you too. See you soon.
See you soon.
Bye, everyone.
So next on our agenda, we have Josh with a budget process update.
Let me get this. I'm not used to doing this side of it, so I apologize as this is going to take me a second to get it all figured out so that I can see everybody and I can get this together. My dual screens. I don't see that button. Too many things open. Okay. You see my screen?
Yes.
All right. So I just wanted to take a quick moment to kind of give an update on the budget prep for FY 24-25. This is not the big action item one that we will need to do, where that'll come later in April. But this is for the time period from July 1, 2023 until June 30th, 2024. Again, no action today, just informational, but feedback and thoughts are greatly appreciated. Just a budget timeline. So late October, early November, it was announced that there would be no changes to the general fund, which is great, which in the last couple of years, we've had a reduction that we've had to figure out with the general fund. At this point, there was no required reduction, which is great. So through November and December, staff reviewed budgets forecasted for the end of this year, and identified needs and potential adjustments to what their current budget was. So typically what this means is that our budget from FY23 just moved forward to FY24 and FY25 with some increases with cost of living. Basically, if it cost $100,000 to run a pool with staff and benefits, the next year it would go up to 110 based on, or 103, we'll say, with 3% living. So that was a simple way for us to look at it. So what we really had to do is identify where is our reality. As Jessica mentioned, the pandemic has impacted each of our facilities in a unique way. And so it was our job to really take this opportunity to right size our budget, to really take and do that. And so that's what they looked at through 2020, through the end of last year. The draft impacts based on that finding was shared with the city administrator in January, presenting them to you to now as proposed drafts and thoughts based on staff recommendations. There will be some conversations with council and administrator and staff between February and March, and then April, based on all the feedback we have, we'll come back to PAC with more information, more details about fee adjustments, what the administrator is proposing to council, to get PAC's official endorsement, hopefully. And then in May, at the second meeting in May, is when council is required to approve the budget. While this is a 2-year budget kind of working, city council can only approve the first year and make recommendations on the second year. So really the FY24 one is the focus. So just some of the general fund findings that we staff looked at. What we are identifying is that we really are seeing programming and interest of what we're offering to be in high demand in the majority of our programs. Our swim lessons that we see are becoming full. Our day camps at all 4 places, we're at nearly 100%. Deliveries remain popular. Golf is probably across the country. You have seen golf rounds increase almost everywhere as an easy way to get out and since the pandemic. And with that, concessions and sales of supplies have increased. Unfortunately, we have had a couple of areas that were more greatly impacted. The hockey leagues and the rentals at our ice rinks took a pretty significant decline during the pandemic. Some of the rules that were there, the closings that we had to do to be consistent with state orders, really took an impact, and we just haven't seen those teams coming back, as well as some people just chose to stop playing. And as Jessica mentioned, I mean, we are not quite as slow to return, but we just haven't seen the increase to pre-pandemic levels yet. She's doing a great job there, but with cobblestone especially, those are big numbers that come into play, and so we're just trying to be a little bit more realistic with our numbers from there. And then from the expense side, the reality is we have more people at the golf courses and day camps, which means that we have more staffing needs. We also in some places are doing a little bit less staffing, so we're trying to get those numbers consistent. And then, as I've said probably too many times in the last year and 3 months, we have a lot of transition of long-term staff. And so while we had some succession levels and individuals in place with people moving on, those opportunities, those people have moved on or found different options. So we're trying to figure out how to best fill that gap so that in the next couple of years, we have our next leaders within the Parks Department. And then supplies is very much the same thing. In areas where we are seeing an increase of usage or demand, we're seeing the increase of supplies, as well as everyone knows we are dealing with a cost of supplies that far outweighs what the normal cost of living increase is. So those are kind of the findings from staff and from our conversation with finances. Which leads us into what we're looking at in regards to the draft impacts. So these are the things that, as we looked at golf revenue, day camp revenue, and general skating, so public skating, we have seen in the last couple of years a significant increase over the budget that was put together in 2021. When we really thought everything was going to come back to normal in about 6 months. We didn't see that happen. We did see, as I mentioned, a significant decrease in the hockey leagues with park rentals. Again, smaller decrease just to get it kind of more in line with it. And then, as I mentioned, the rink rentals. So these are private groups. We're just seeing some people who have stopped renting regularly at Pure. Or high school teams that are trying to find the right balance for their budgets as well. We're seeing some decreases with that. One of the things that we are looking to propose is fee increases for golf starting after this season. So it's part of this FY fiscal year of 2024. And this really, when you look back, there are a number of golf fees that have not been touched since 2015, and some of the golf passes rates have not been changed since 2009. So again, the rate that the passes are charged are 2009, and the liveries remain an extremely popular one. Remains one of the best values in the city, and when we compare it to what other organizations are doing. Other businesses, I mean, it's well below there. So we also looked at this as an opportunity. Since I've been here, the fee increases, the adjustments have been in an effort to address budget cuts. One of the things that we are looking at is how do we utilize some of our fee increases, these ideas, to support an increase in staff. So as we look at some of those areas, as Jessica mentioned, she does a great job with a one person team. Every one of her peers could utilize a full-time year-round person. And this is an opportunity where we're not looking to deal with cuts. So we feel that an increase could be tied to supporting an additional staff person that I'll speak about here. And the draft impacts. What we're looking at is that and the addition of an FTE that would primarily focus during the summer season at the liveries. With Cheryl Sam retiring, we lost a lot of experience. Joe Anderson is going to come in and do great. But there was a trifecta of people leading the liveries, the two facilities there, and we're now down one of those people. And the second one has another career that they're working on. So we need to find some support for the liveries. We also like the opportunity of being able to support the parks in the off season with the rinks or Mac Pool or some way that we are building up our bench to support that. So that's kind of the primary focus of the impacts. The other ones kind of are touched on based on we're spending more, or we got more people, we need more supplies, we've got more kids in camp, we need more staff to watch those kids in place. And then just some general staffing decreases as we kind of looked at where the other facilities are not quite matching up. So, and then the FTE, there's a couple staff that are out of line with where they should be in the salary lines. So that adjustment is there as well. In general, you know, working with finance, they wanted me to get to a net zero between revenue and expense, and I got awfully close. You know, these are kind of where we're at, and this is just the general fund. And so ideally, we're going to be presenting a budget that is exactly like 2023, bottom line, with a change of just under $5,000. From the millage fund, this is always a little bit simpler. The reductions and the changes don't impact. We will see an increase to what we can spend in the millage fund due to increase of property values over the last year. Unfortunately, the vast majority of that increase is tied to things costing more. We are looking at playground improvements that are going from $75,000 to $110,000 to $115,000. So these are projects that we have on the books that we've got to figure out how to pay for those. And again, the only minor impacts that are kind of being mentioned are again for those salary increases, adjustments for those full-time staff, and then a portion of that FTE usually comes out of the millage. So that is kind of the overview of where we've gotten to. There's a lot of information that I know I shared with you. I'm happy to answer any questions, any comments, any thoughts. As I said, when we come back in a couple months, we will have a great deal more information for you to review, and it'll be provided ahead of time. So that's what I got.
Okay, thank you very much, Josh. And I know that this will be a robust discussion going forward. So we don't expect you to kind of wade through anything more now, but what questions does PAC have for Josh at this point on the budget? I've got Rachel and then Ann.
A quick question, just to make sure I'm understanding it. So for that just about $5,000 difference that you're looking to kind of absolve, that for revenue can count anything that's restricted or unrestricted? I just want to.
Yeah, I mean, there's a good chance that in the next month I will be asked to find $5,000 more, whether it is looking at the numbers a little bit closer. It could be restriction. It could be that on top of what we normally ask to be supported by the general fund, on the bigger side, not parks, that it might be included into that, because I mean, we are not a break-even department, so that there's money that is supported by the general fund from the city, so that 5,000 might be included into that one as well. So,
Ann, go ahead.
I wanted to comment on the fee increases, and I think for golf and Argo, given the enormous popularity of both those activities, I think it certainly supports considering a fee increase in those places. Just in light of the caller this at the beginning of the meeting, does council get involved in the nitty-gritty of actual fees?
I will speak to, I mean, I was going to comment on, so the creation of fees is approved by council. There are opportunities for staff to provide discounts in various situations that staff have had the autonomy within the department to do. Those are fees that are associated with promotions. And those are publicly made available. As I speak to the golf one, we're looking into that to find out exactly what those fees are. But if you look back through our previous brochures, which we've done, there's a number of discounts that have been offered, whether it is a group rate of 40 people or more, whether it is a prorated rate. I mean, this is something that council doesn't necessarily get involved with, is somebody signs up after July 1, there's a prorated amount based on that. Those conversations are there. We also do a number of events that Veterans Day, veterans sign up for free, can golf for free, can come to the pool for free. There's a variety of different those type of one-offs that are usually promoted publicly and offered to all. We will be diving deeper into that, but council typically is not directly involved in some of those singular promotion discounts. But the approval of these, they are 100% a part of. They are the only ones that, if we want to charge more than a rate, council has to approve. If we have a new class that we are looking to create that we don't do anywhere else, council would approve that rate. If we decide to, across the board for the next 5 years, reduce rates as we did with the golf fees in 2009, they would approve the lower rate as well, because that is going to be the rate that we are focused on for the upcoming year. So,
Thanks.
Larry, go ahead.
Yeah, Josh, I guess I'm interested in your opinion. Is the kind of shift in revenue where golf is showing a lot of increase and hockey is showing a significant decrease? You think you attribute that to the pandemic or a longer term kind of thing?
I think that golf has, as an industry, has seen increases since the pandemic. It was the first one coming out of back in April or May of 2019. Golf was one of the first things to open, and it has seen a boom since then. I think that we continue to see increased rates and increased usage at this point, and we foresee it for the near future. I think that there's too many people that have gotten involved with it and gotten engaged with it. So I think that is one. Do I think there'll be something in the coming years that may change that? Probably. We have ebbs and flows. The hockey league is a little bit different. I think that we were seeing a small decline before the pandemic. And what we have seen since then is the policies that the city of Ann Arbor took, and Parks as a part of it, made it pretty restrictive in what they could use. And most adults that play sports are very particular about how they play sports. And they didn't necessarily agree with some of those things. And so we saw some of those teams come back. We are looking, our plan, and what I did with the 2 years, is I anticipate seeing a decrease of the variance in 2025 than 2024. I expect us now, will it be directly in hockey leagues or will it be in other hockey programming? That's the challenge that I've given to staff, is that we've lost these hours, we've lost these teams. How are we making it up somewhere else? That's the unknown there. And so I want our staff to have a realistic budget to work to, which is why we have it in there. So.
Rachel, go ahead.
Yes, a comment and perhaps a request. Firstly, I just wanted to share my appreciation that you are adjusting staff salaries. I think that's fantastic. It's a very important retention strategy. And moreover, our people work very hard for us. And I'm very happy to hear that they'll be paid well for that hard work. So I just wanted to echo my support of that. So my request is it possible to get information on kind of whether or not we're breaking even or where expenses lie with the Gifts and Memorials program specifically.
Yes. So I'll give you a big picture about this statement, and then we'll go to this. Gifts and Memorials is handled in a third fund. Actually, we really have a fourth fund, because the land acquisition, the Greenbelt funds, is a different fund that it's similar to the millage, the general parks millage. Yes, we will work on getting that to you. We have an understanding of what's there. Staffing for that is a little bit funky, but we will work to get you that. It is kind of outside of this typical budgeting process, but I can share that we can get that shared with you.
Okay, yeah, I would just be really curious to see what that looks like. No timeline for when I would want that. I'm just curious.
No, I appreciate that. That is one that we know that as we move forward, alternative funding sources are a way that we need to look at. And we're still working through. We hired a new Gifts and Memorial temp staff that should be starting here shortly. We're very excited about bringing her on. So, but yeah, I can share that with you.
Awesome, thank you.
Other questions for Josh about the budget? Again, we'll revisit this in more detail as the year goes on. All right, thanks very much, Josh. Appreciate it. At this point, we'll move briefly, because this is going to be a long meeting, to our reports section. And Josh, typically we have a full report. We talked a little bit earlier. We wondered if you could concentrate on some reactions to the ice storm that we suffered over the last week, and maybe just hit the highlights there for us. And we'll try to kind of breeze through this as best we can, of course.
Yep, I will talk quickly. Yeah, I mean, obviously the ice storm impacted all of us. From the parks point of view, we lost power at a number of our facilities. We're excited, obviously. One of the things that'll be coming is we are going to be having some solar installed, which will help support us moving forward from this type of incident. With the exception of Mac Pool, all of our facilities are back up, and for the most part, very limited damage. Most of our programming doesn't take place this time of year. A lot of our facilities aren't. Unfortunately, Mac is still having some issues related to pool motor not working following the power outage. Staff are working with contractors. We're working with the public schools, our park ops, to see what options there may be to solve problems. As we all are aware, logistically, sometimes ordering things take a little bit longer now. So we may be looking to move. We're just trying to figure out how do we get our participants back in the water with our swim team that has an event coming up in a couple of weeks. We're working really hard to figure that out. So it was not the facility I was most concerned about on Thursday when power was out. I expected the ice to melt at Buer, but it remained cold enough that it did not. But this is one we're dealing with. So as soon as we have more information about Mac, I will share with PAC, because we have about 10 weeks left in the season. And ordering parts, unfortunately, does not take days anymore. It takes weeks. So we've got to figure out what we can do with that one. So more details on that. So I will speak. I did send the information from Mr. Mendoza. We understand his frustration on how these changes are impacting his use at the golf courses. As I shared with PAC, staff will provide a response and a report based on the information that he presented us, as well as what we've done in the coming days. So just wanted to share that with you. And then lastly, Juliet wanted me to mention that we will have new Zoom links sent out as there's been some staffing changes for PAC. We want to get it all corrected. So in the next week or so, you should see new Zoom links for the future. So.
All right. Sounds great. That was very efficient. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. We'll kind of go around the horn here. Larry, do we have anything from RAC this time?
Just real quickly there. We're in the midst of registration for the spring and summer leagues, as well as for day camps in the summer. And that's probably about it.
All right, sounds great. Steve, anything from Center of the City this time? Speak now or forever hold your peace, Steve.
Sorry, I was having some audio difficulties. No, I don't have any updates on that.
All right, perfect. Thank you very much, Steve. And we're going to talk a little bit about a resolution on the pump track. Anything further from the bike committee?
We have not had any meetings in some time.
Yeah, so the bike committee, the original bike committee is done, so that
Done.
one is no longer. We hopefully will have a different committee update next month about something else with bikes. So
Got it. My apologies.
No problem.
And then the environmental.
On the environmental side, they met last month. Really the only thing of note that they talked about, the city has set up some air quality monitoring and in 3 or 4 locations. I think 2 of them actually are on park facilities. One's at the market and one's at the Bryant Community Center. And you can go online. I don't have the URL here, but I think if you Google Ann Arbor air quality monitoring, you can find it. If you want to know what the quality of the air is at our parks. Well, those 2 parks anyway.
That's awesome. Thank you very much. Other committees that I have failed to mention. All right. With that, we will move on to new business. We actually have 3 separate resolutions to consider today. And we'll go through them each in turn here. The first one has to do with a Michigan DNR grant. So Josh, shall I hand these off to you or see?
this one's for Adam.
All right, Adam, you're up.
Hello, everyone. I'm going to share my screen with you real quick while I talk about this one. My screen. Okay. So, I just want to give a quick update on the Bird Park Basin project for a smart grant.
Adam, I think we're having a little trouble hearing you.
Oh, not just me. Okay.
Yeah. I can jump in if needed.
Yeah, nothing, Adam.
Why don't I just jump in and I can do the verbal part. Yeah, so you guys might remember, back in I believe it was November, we came to you talking about our first Spark grant application for the beer refrigeration system of the ice arena. As Adam has on the screen here, unfortunately we weren't successful at that grant application, but there were over 460 applicants, of which 20 some were awarded. So it was a stiff competition. So we do plan to reapply in the spring, but in talking with the grant coordinator, they actually recommended that we could look towards another grant funding source. It's a federal grant, the Land and Water Conservation Grant on the far right side. It allows us to get up to 500,000 with a 500,000 match. So we would have to, adjust the scope a little bit. Wouldn't be able to do all the things we had initially asked for with the Spark grant, which had a much larger dollar amount of 1 million award and a 1 million match. So we would just kind of focus on the refrigeration or chilling system and some accessibility upgrades. So our plan is still to apply for both, but just given the stiff competition for the Spark grant, we're hoping we might find more success with Land and Water Conservation Fund. So does anyone have any questions? And Adam, I don't know, you can try, you can see if we can hear you anymore. Nope, still can't. But yeah, happy if anyone has any questions.
Anne, go ahead.
Yeah, just land and water conservation grant. This is kind of interesting. Like, how does the name connect with the types of projects they're going to fund?
So I don't know specifically, but I do know this one would qualify, even though it's an indoor recreation facility, or I guess technically outdoor recreation facility, but it would be eligible for funding. It doesn't have as much competition. I probably should have mentioned this, much competition, because as a federal grant, there's additional reviews we need to have the State Historic Preservation Office review the project, and there's just some more work on our end as the funding applicants. So there tends to be a much smaller pool of people that are kind of putting in the time and effort and funding just to even apply for the grant. But yeah, sorry, I don't know more about the grant specifically, but hopeful that we would be more competitive with that grant.
Yeah, we'll get a better answer to why, what the land and water conservation means in that. It's part of the MDNR. So I think we'll get that answer. I think it's where the funds come from in order to provide the grant more than it is what the grant is for. But we'll confirm with that and we'll share that out.
Yeah, that fund's been around for a long time. The city has received several of them in the past. Adam just messaged me saying that the grant says it supports active recreation opportunities as well as conservation of land and water. So that's kind of would be the active recreation component.
Other questions for Hillary/Adam?
This is Steve. Sorry, I can't figure out how to raise my hand.
Go ahead.
The question is whether there's like somehow strings attached. I saw that the grant was like a matching situation. So if we were not able to accumulate the other funds in order to make the project happen, would applying for this grant somehow sort of cast the die that we have to go through with the project nevertheless, or?
I don't believe so. I think the match is just there showing that we're willing funding partners and that we need the additional funds to kind of make the project come to fruition. So I think because of how expensive the chilling refrigeration system upgrade is, it would be difficult to do that with just half those funds. We kind of need the full amount to be able to do that piece of this.
Yeah.
Okay.
And this is a project that is going to be coming here to us anyways. The chiller system at Buer, chiller system at Vets are both utilizing materials that are outdated, and the supply is going down. So these are projects that are coming. We will continue to find other conversations as you see. We're looking to utilize the Spark grant again because there's 2 more rounds of the Spark grant that we'll be kind of identifying. We're going to find out exactly what were the positives and negatives for the first round to the best of our ability, and be doing and looking at that because at some point we are going to have to replace those systems, and if we can get support from a grant ahead of time, that definitely allows us to offset that at this point.
Go ahead, Rachel.
Me again. 2 questions. The first is, do you have any sense of whether or not the Spark grants may be slightly less competitive in future rounds? I know that this was a huge announcement and a pretty innovative approach to granting. So there was a lot of excitement up front. And then my second question is whether or not we feel comfortable providing whatever the match amount is.
Yeah, I'll speak to the first one. Well, we have 21 applicants that won't be reapplying. I expect a lot of people to still reapply, and there's still to be stiff competition. There's not been total transparency on how the awards are made, but what we know is that a lot of it was based on kind of some public health and economic information that was gathered from like a GIS standpoint. So there were some decisions that kind of whittled the pool down based on those metrics. And then my sense is that then they probably evaluated the actual projects. So those are probably areas where Ann Arbor isn't quite as in need as other communities.
Yep.
So I'm imagining that and combined with the large amount of applicants is what gives us some pause and our ability to be successful at the Spark grant, which is why we're kind of pivoting to doing both. And then from a funding availability, Josh, I don't know if you can speak to that one.
Yeah, obviously there's, I mean, we have our millage that we have projects, we allocate funds to projects on a yearly basis. Rank and pool upgrades is part of that. So there's funding that's associated with that. There's also, we have, similar to what we were going to do with the Gallup Bridge before the ARPA is go into our fund balance. We have a fund balance within our millage that would cover some of that. So what we're doing with these grant requests is trying to prevent $1 million going into, or, you know, from fund balance at this time. So yes, we feel comfortable with the match side of it because of that. The more we can get funds through grants, the better that we'll be able to do more projects moving forward. So that's kind of where we're at with that. So we don't want to dip in there as much as we have to, just when we need to.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I also just wanted to mention, you know, our ability to apply for the Land and Water Conservation Fund grant. You know, it's a federal grant, but administered through the GNR, is because we got our pros plan in and approved on time, you know, by that February 1st deadline. So that's giving us this eligibility for that funding source. So thank you to everyone who helped push us over the finish line there back in January. So we appreciate it.
Other discussion or a motion?
If no one else has any questions, I believe we have a resolution in front of us, so I would move to put forth that resolution.
Yes, exactly. Thanks so much, Anne. Is there a second to approve the resolution?
This is Steve. I second.
I think Pravina may have beaten you to the punch there, Steve.
That's fair.
All right, so we have a motion by Anne to approve the resolution, seconded by Pravina. Any further discussion? All right, hearing none, all in favor of approving the resolution, please say aye.
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 All opposed, no? All right, the motion carries. Thank you very much. The next resolution that we have is a resolution to recommend approval of a lease with Huron River Holdings for use of parking lots at 412 and 416 Longshore Drive.
Yes, I will speak on this one. These parking lots have been used to support the Arbor liveries during the summer since 2012. Every year, the ownership there debates what they're going to do with their property, but it is a much needed relief to the neighborhood over there to have those parking there. It provides a lot of parking on the weekends to support that. Not enough to fill all the needs, but it is definitely a parking lot that takes some of the pressure off of the neighborhood for sure. This is a 1-year lease with 5 individual administrative renewals. The terms don't change a whole lot. Basically, it's not a whole lot there. There's just an increase, a 5% escalator that is included into that. The various contracts over the year have varied from no increases to the last set of increases was $250 per year. The 5% is a pretty standard amount based on what we're looking to do there. So we anticipate the fees being covered by our park users. Again, it's a cost of doing business at deliveries and the popularity that is there. So not much else has changed other than that with this agreement. So any questions?
Larry, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm just curious, have we approached them about purchasing the property?
The city doesn't tend to approach in regards to buying. There's a number of things that we do with land acquisition. If at some point there is a conversation for sale, we definitely will look to get engaged with that because they are currently not looking to sell. They're just having the conversation about what they don't know what they're going to do in the coming years. So we unfortunately don't. That has not been our practice to proactively approach parcels within the city to look to have them sell to the city. Part of it is The appraisal we can only purchase at appraisal rate, and we can go through. And next month we have a Greenbelt presentation, I think, planned, and Remy Long and Rosie Paul Donaldson will be able to speak more eloquently on that. But we can only pay appraisal rate, so that property could sell and get the highest bidder. So that's part of it as well.
And Josh, remind us just how long we've been doing the
since 2012.
Okay.
Since 2012. So it is I mean, the other option is that we don't rent it, and then it is a free for all over there, even more than because that's an open parking lot, and asking that group to maintain parking for the liveries is not what we're looking to do. So this gives us the ability to control it a little bit more, to work with PD to support that. So we are in favor of it. It is for 58 spaces that help a lot more than otherwise. So and we are meeting, speaking of that, we are meeting with police next week to walk through Argo. So that is part of that conversation, as well as how do we continue to evolve that to support the neighborhood to reduce the impact on there. So
Josh, just a really quick question. I know that there's more development and businesses that are coming in that area. Right now they're getting built up.
Mhm.
Is that parking lot right now managed by staff, or is it just open and there's a sign and people just park there?
It is managed by staff. It is, we say what's available. We work with police. We work with different things. That lot is not impacted right now. There is going to be a development that is coming along Swift Street, across the railroad tracks there. And obviously with Lower Town and with a number of different things, we're hoping to see some other opportunities with that. That'll take some more pressure off. But right now it is kind of park as you are. And it's all good until the first person parks poorly, and then everyone else parks poorly. So.
Okay, and then one more thing, I'm so sorry. With the DTE land property that's coming up, is there also a discussion of some overflow parking as part of that project to kind of break up the Argo? I don't know what the new place will be called.
Yeah, so there is part of the long-term plan there, and the site plan is to have a bridge from the Lower Town side, or Broadway West is I think what they're calling it right now, going across the river to the Cascades. So there is an idea that is going to be public space. There's going to be parking there. Exactly what that parking looks like is how much of it is open, how much of it is resident or retail type of thing. But I anticipate there will be some there, and we will continue to utilize for as long as we can. The Wall Street lot is our primary overflow because of proximity.
Other questions on the resolution to recommend approval of the lease, or a motion to approve?
I would be happy to motion to approve.
All right, a motion by Rachel. Is there a second? Ruth, second?
I'll second.
Wonderful. Further discussion on the motion to approve the resolution? All right, hearing none, all in favor of approval of the resolution for the lease? Please say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
All opposed, no? All right, the motion carries. Thank you. We have one more resolution, and that is the resolution to establish a bike pump track ad hoc committee. And so Josh, Ann, if you guys want to speak to this a little bit.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and take it. So obviously in the end of last year, late November, we had the report from the Bike Recreation Subcommittee. One of the recommendations was to create a bike pump track ad hoc or subcommittee to further investigate the desire, the feasibility, and potentially location and development of a pump track in the city of Ann Arbor. So that is where we're coming back to, is to create that subcommittee that will have a focus on a robust community engagement to ensure the desire for a pump track, identifying possible locations by developing a scoring criteria for a pump track, developing the design elements of a pump track, engaging the community if there is a desire to determine the preferred location, and then probably one of the biggest things is long term is identifying alternative funding opportunities and developing of an advocacy group similar to what we have at Friends of the Skate Park that will kind of support this initiative moving forward if it moves in that direction. So Anne has agreed to be part of this subcommittee. Myself, Adam Furco from city staff. We also are looking to have somebody from Washington County staff that we're just finalizing that with, as well as 2 additional City of Ann Arbor staff. And then we have 4 citizens, 3 of which were on the bike recreation subcommittee that have agreed to continue with this, as well as 1 more additional citizen related to the bike community. So a total of 10 people on the committee. So, any questions?
Do you have a sense of when it would start to meet?
So I think that what I have said is that this is a year term with ending March 31st of 2024. So we would be looking probably to start in April, give myself a month to get some things organized, get it together. And then that would be the goal, is to start it and have that year, and then hopefully we'll have some wheels on the ground and figure out what we need to do moving forward. But this is our first year to get it moving.
There was a pun in there with wheels on the ground.
Nah, I don't do them often, but I appreciate you noticing it.
I would move the approval. I don't think we need to belabor this. I think this is a great next step, and we ought to just get the subcommittee going.
Great. Motion by Steve to approve the resolution. Is there a second?
I will second that.
All right. Second by Rachel. Thanks.
I just have a question.
Yep.
Are we going to be specifying certain positions? Well, sometimes with subcommittees, we need like,
Do we have a chair and then a recorder and then that type of thing?
or people from certain communities? Is it just going to be staff and a few of us?
There are 4 citizens that are involved with the bike community that bring some expertise to a pump track development and focus on that. So,
Okay.
any further discussion? All right, hearing none, I think we have a motion and a second. So all in favor of approving the resolution, please say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. All right, the motion carries. Thank you very much, everybody.
Yep.
We'll now move on at this point to our second public commentary period of the afternoon. Are there any callers waiting to speak?
I believe we potentially have 1 caller. Caller with phone number ending in 546. If you're able to use the raise hand function, we'd be happy to admit you for speaking. It does not appear we have any public commentary at this point.
Okay, thank you very much. With that, communications are in your packet. And at that point, I think we can adjourn our meeting for today. So thank you, everybody, for joining. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Bye, everyone. Take care.
Bye-bye.